Welcome everyone, Farmer Cop here. This is going to be some new information from Giant Software about the upcoming game Farming Simulator 25. This is a blog post that posted all about ground deformation. So we'll go ahead and read through it together and take a look at it. And we got quite a few really cool screenshots actually to kind of show off to you. But anyhow, if you guys have not pre-ordered the game, make sure you guys do so down below in the description. There is a link, and you can use code FarmerCop at checkout to go to support the channel. There's also a really cool magazine out, Magazine Issue 7 by Giant Software, which you can get the digital download for that down below. And that also does go to support the channel, and that's a really good way to support the channel if you're on console and you're wondering how you can support the channel since you can't buy, you can't buy the regular copies of the game because you can't use them on your console. So that's a good way to, it's just like $2 or $3 or $3 or $4. I think it's $3.50, something like that, in the United States for the magazine. So it's not too bad. There's actually it's probably the best magazine they've ever come out with. There's a lot of really cool info in there. But anyhow, you're going to see a couple different trailers and videos on your screen as I'm talking, and then I'll show you guys the screenshots at the end because I really want to talk about them and show them off a little bit. So anyhow, let's jump into it. It says, it's not a secret anymore that the ground in Farming Simulator 25 will deform, but you want some details, don't you? Well, go and get some. Alongside new screenshots visualizing how the ground will deform, senior software engineer Eddie Edwards from Giant Software will go further into detail on how it actually works. So then we have a little bit. Eddie, tell us about you and your position first. What's your role? So he says he's the senior engineer of programmers for Farming Simulator. He's been at Giants since the early days of FS13, so he's been there for a long time. He's got a lot of different stuff about him in there. I'll let you guys read that if you want to, but we'll move on to more of the ground deformation stuff. It says firmness and viscosity, how the ground deforms. Depending on the ground type, the deformation and compression of the soil is dependent on multiple factors. Take a look, and we will here in a shortly. And there's actually some really cool images. I think you guys are going to be more excited about ground deformation after this, so don't worry. Which factors define how the ground deforms? Eddie says a number of factors affect this. Firstly, every group type or every ground type has a different level of firmness and viscosity. Tarmac cannot be deformed at all, for instance, while mud can be deformed a lot due to different firmness. And driving on snow instantly crushes it, while driving on mud causes it to compress over a longer time due to different viscosity. Also, if the ground is wet, this affects the deformation as well. Which vehicle you are driving also affects the deformation. The weight of the tractor and the width of the tires both affect the reaction of the terrain. And a slower moving vehicle will sink faster than a fast moving vehicle. So that we ended up when DJ Goham and I went and played Farming Simulator 25 at PAX West, which is a really old build at this point. That was back in September. We got some comments about how we were driving and how the ground was not deforming and how the tractors looked like they bounced around a lot. They bounced around a lot because the ground wasn't deforming and the ground wasn't able to because we were driving so quick. Usually you're not driving a tractor at 30 to 40 miles per hour through a field. So it just wasn't going to show you the ground deformation when we were driving it that fast. So that had more to do with anything else. But anyhow, I digress. It says, how does ground deformation affect gameplay? What will players feel? For the first time, FS25 gives a real physics response from the terrain. You will feel the tractor bumping over the ground and you will see it creating ruts and tracks. And if you go back and drive over those ruts and tracks, you will feel the effect from them as well. It is also harder to steer if you have dug into the ground, just as it is in real life. Driving in rain will be more difficult than driving when it's sunny. Your tire configuration now has a greater effect too, and you may need to consider which tires best to use for different seasons and different types of field work, which we've never really had to think that much about tire width and tire type, but this is when we're actually going to have to really think about it a lot more. Then it moves on. The fun of plowing on another level. Well, the deformation on the soil is individual to the machines, their weight, and other conditions. One field activity in particular will probably feel a whole lot different in Farming Simulator 25. What kind of machines and equipment will showcase ground deformation best? Plowing is a new experience now. The plow creates real physical furrows, which can not only be seen more clearly on screen, but also affects the tractor when driving over them. Also, machines with Caterpillar tracks and some of their own are coming to their own now as they can handle uneven ground so well. So you'll be better off if you're using like a quad track or something like that versus like a big old, wheeled tractor. Want to know more? Let's talk performance visuals and challenges. What were the technical challenges in implementing ground deformation? The ground deformation works on a grid size of 12.5 centimeters, which works out to 16K by 16K for a 2-kilometer map. That's about 256 megapixels. The map itself is only 4 megapixels. There were various technical challenges with storing this data efficiently and also with processing the data efficiently. For instance, when tools like cultivators and plows work in the fields, when the vehicles drive over the fields and react to these fine-scale bumps and ridges, there is also a procedural level of ground deformation, which is mapped with geometry in a similar way to how the terrain texture mapped with images, except it runs on the CPU instead of the faster GPU, so we had to heavily optimize this code. But yeah, so there's a lot of technical mumbo jumbo in here that I'm reading through. Yeah, it says how is ground information stored and managed? Since ground information works at a higher resolution than we've dealt with before, we wanted to save memory in areas were not deformed. So on rocky mountains or in places where the player has not yet been. So we created a sparse version of the density maps. Okay. And if you save and load out, it's not going to save your ground information. It'll get rid of it. So just be aware of that. Then there's a few other questions. So it also answers like, tell us about how you optimize deformation physics for performance. How does the game handle visual transitions for ground deformation? When do you personally like, or what do you personally like the most about ground deformation in the game? And for that one, I'll actually read that one. That one's pretty good. It was a very rewarding experience to implement all these new technologies, and I love the fact the result is not only a better visual experience for the player, but also that it interacts with physics and gameplay in such interesting ways. FS25 is a more interesting and realistic simulator than ever before. Then they do have the ground information in 25 seconds video, which I've thought about playing, but I'll let you guys go check it out there. Yeah, let's take a look at some screenshots. There's some really cool screenshots in here that I want to take a look at with you guys here. So let me get those opened up on my computer so I can run through them with you guys. So the first one here, we have a look at the plowing, which we can see that looks that looks pretty deep. It does not look fun to drive over. It looks like you get stuck on that pretty easily. If you move forward, it kind of shows what it's doing here. It kind of shows some of the, kind of the more technical aspect of it there. So you got that. If we move forward from there, we get a different view of it, which is nice as well. How deep it is. Get another view of the John Deere here as well, where you can also see a little bit of the plow in the back. We get another view of the plowing here. I know it's mostly plowing right now, but don't worry, we got some really cool ones. This is not the stuff I'm the most excited about, but plowing, cool, all good there. Here we get a look at Oxbow driving. So it's on kind of a hard surface, not a crazy hard surface and not a crazy soft surface. It's kind of like a dirt path, so you can see the ground deformation there. Looks quite nice there. It is also raining, and if you look at the Oxbow, the tires are muddy, and I'm going to show you more of that here in a second. We move forward here. We have a John Deere driving on the field. You can see with the wide tires on there, it's helping spread out the weight of the tractor more, so it's not deforming the ground as much as it possibly could. It's also sunny out, so note that as well. Next up here, this is really cool. So we get to look at the back of a John Deere. It's raining. We see like mud caked in on the tires, which is really cool. And that looks really good. So that is crazy on there. And if we move forward another screenshot, we get like another angle of that pretty much, which is cool as well. Move forward another one here. We have a look at the Keys Quad Track, which has a bunch of mud caked in on the tracks, which is super cool. I love the way that all looks, to be honest. I love it. And then if we move forward another one, we have a look at it going across the bridge, but we can still see how caked in that mud is on there, which is just really cool to see. So washing your machines, you might want to do it more often now. Next one here, we have a look at a Valtra, which is very muddy, a lot of mud caked in there. And you also have a kind of like a little harrow or disc harrow or cultivator type thing going over the plowed field in the back, like a seedbed preparator or something like that. Next image here is another image of that Valtra. Now it's a little bit sunnier out. But you can still see all that mud is caked on. So it's definitely on there. That's for sure. Move forward another one. We have another angle at the Valtra here. Again, just more look at how some of that dirt and stuff is caked on there, which is pretty cool to see. Move forward another one. This one's a really cool screenshot here. We have the rice planter out there, a transplanter, the Iseki. And the ground just looks crazy with all the water kind of spread out in different puddles and stuff. That's probably the most realistic looking ground that we've ever seen. So that's honestly just shocked me to see that photo. The next one, we have a John Deere getting ready to drive through some snow. So you can see it snowing on there. Obviously, snow will be back in the game, so we know that. Next image here, you can see it driving through there. And you can see that as it turned, it dug in a little bit more to the snow there. But yeah, it's going to dig into that, and the ground deformation is going to be kind of more apparent on the snow as well, which we haven't seen before. Here's a better image of that, kind of digging in a little bit on the turn. But still really cool to see. And I think this is our... How many more images we have here? A couple more here. Next one, another image in the snow here. We can see it driving. Those are some pretty deep ruts, which makes sense. The snow's pretty deep on there. I'm assuming this is going to be on Riverbend Springs, but I could be wrong about that. And then we get one last image at the tractor, kind of when it's a little bit darker, driving through the snow like that. So pretty cool stuff, to be honest. But yeah, there you guys go. That's what I got for you guys. If you guys enjoyed, please drop a like down below. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button up on the screen to join the Farmer Cop channel. Turn your notification bell so you don't miss any future videos I may post. This has been Farmer Cop. Thank you guys for coming and watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.